in my various IMDb scrounging throughout this whole time that I've done the podcast, but especially with this episode because of the time period it was made, I found a lot of very fun titles for movies and TV shows. And I thought, let's make this into a game.
This is going to test my knowledge and my recall.
Well, I don't know if there's any, I don't know what it says about your knowledge if you win, but we'll see. Yeah, this who knows, this may become a regular thing because I had a lot of fun. Basically, I'm going to read off a list of titles of movies or TV shows, and you just have to tell me if it's real or if I made it up.
Oh God, okay.
Okay, so basically just say real or fake.
Okay.
All right. Okay. First one. The Dog Who Saved Halloween.
Real.
It is real.
Ah, yes. It sounds like something that could be real. Look, if Air Bud is real, then The Dog Who Saved Halloween has to be real.
Every movie that can put a dog into a situation has been made.
Ah, fantastic. Yep.
Okay. Cats and Kings.
I'm going to say that one's fake.
It is fake. Very good. I made that up. The Condom Killer.
I think this is real. Is it real? I feel like I've seen something with maybe some, I'm totally pulling this out of my ass, but I feel like I've seen some Tumblr screenshots with vagina dentata and stuff like that, but maybe I'm making that up. Is it real?
So it is real, but you may be confusing it with a more successful cult horror film called Killer Condom.
Oh, okay.
Which was often on SBS really late at night here.
Oh, that would explain why I've seen it.
Yeah, it's one of those purposely kind of schlocky, gory, stupid horror films. This one, I think, may take itself a little bit more seriously, but I don't know.
How can you take yourself seriously with Killer Condom?
They walk into the boardroom and it's like, this is my passion project. This is the thing I want to make more than anything. All right, next one. That's My Bush.
That's real. That's a TV series.
It is, yes. It is about George W. Bush, not vaginas. Be My Wifey.
I'm going to say it's not real, but I'm fully prepared to accept the horror that it might be real.
It is fake. You're on a roll. Thank God.
I feel like you've given an idea to Netflix now.
I don't think you should thank God for any of these concepts. The Gourmet Detective.
Not real?
Real.
Okay, was this a TV series or was this a chef that had a nose for crime or something?
I will tell you.
I'm guessing it's something, in my head, I'm just imagining something like Wishbone.
It's a little bit. So it's about culinary whiz Henry, who uses his mastery of food, drink and cooking to solve crimes in the culinary world.
Oh, I kind of love that. Except, I cannot imagine it as anything other than, a cartoon animal creature. I was just thinking of Wishbone then. No, actually, it's the Ratatouille mouse.
Remy, the Gourmet Detective. Next one. Sea Ape.
Gotta be real. That has to be real.
It is real. It is not a chimp cop sketch. It is definitely real.
That definitely sounds like something that they actually collaborated with the CIA on.
They would. Moms Anonymous.
I'm going to say fake, but there's definitely that sort of mummy-need drinky sort of genre of TV shows.
It is real.
Ah, there we go.
Mm-hmm. Chicago Undercover, parking inspectors.
That sounds like an SNL sketch. So I'm going to say fake.
It is fake. I made it up. Perhaps I was too silly with it.
I really wanted that to be real.
Last one. Undercover Bridesmaid.
I feel like that's real.
It is real.
Although in my head, I was just imagining something like the Ian Thorpe series, Undercover Angels.
The classic Australian TV series.
Australian TV series.
I'm going to have to come up with more believably shit TV ideas.
I'm happy to workshop this bit.
Definitely a good use of everybody's time. Anyway, Evie, welcome to Reanimates.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here and in a significantly more fun environment than what I dragged you into last week.
Hey, what's not fun about talking about the collapse of society as we know it?
Oh, it's great. I get a big laugh out of it every single week, and I'm sure you did too. But I really enjoyed doing my homework for this particular episode. It's actually something that I was watching it, and considering my taste in TV at the moment, which is extremely silly and some of the worst Australian TV that I've ever watched in my life. This is right up my alley in just kind of very self-conscious and overacting a little bit in places, but I really loved it.
Yes, it actually was one of the more fun things I've had to do for this podcast. It is an episode of a show from 2003 called She Spies. It's season 1, episode 17. It's called The Replacement. Just a little plot synopsis, just in general, because obviously we're coming in most of the way through a season. Plot of She Spies is thus. 3 female convicted felons who were incarcerated for electronic crimes, confidence tricks, and battery are paroled from prison in exchange for work as secret operatives for the US government. So basically, the government gave them the option to either stay in prison or work for them, which I'm sure was a good deal at the time.
I actually did a little bit of research, by which I mean I read the Wikipedia and the IMDb page about this TV series, as you can see, in-depth research. Cameron Daddo appears in the second series.
Yes, part of Australia's royal family. Cameron Daddo is part of the second season, which apparently the second season is a lot less enjoyable.
Oh, that's a shame, because it's nice to see Cameron Daddo really make a pitch for breaking it in the USA, and unfortunately it had to be through this show.
Yeah, I imagine that it would be incredibly difficult for someone coming from Australia to America, because the Australian film and television industry, I mean, not that this would surprise anybody from or not from Australia, is very small and not terribly lucrative. I mean, your best chances of getting super famous is to become a shock jock radio DJ or to marry a footballer.
When we talk about selling out in Australia, you need to sell out super hard.
Well, let's get into She Spies. This episode was directed by David Calloway, who, as well as other things, worked on the 1989 to 1990 show Freddy's Nightmares, which listeners will remember was another Jeffrey Combs project, briefly. He didn't direct the episode that Jeffrey Combs was in, though. A tenuous connection, but still a connection. And the episode was written by Gene Laufenberg, who has written on a variety of shows, including Duckman, Family Guy, and the Clueless TV series, which I didn't realise that was a thing.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think I'd ever... to be fair, I'm not that au fait with Clueless laws, so I didn't actually know they attempted to make it into a series, but of course they did.
If there's IP to be had. One of the creators of the show, the original creators, Joe Levecchi, has a pretty interesting list of credits. One of his other projects is something called Gay, Straight, or Taken. The plot is described thusly. A game show where a single woman meets 3 men. One is in a heterosexual relationship, one is gay and partnered, and one is single and straight. If the woman can correctly pick the single straight guy, the couple wins a trip for 2. If she chooses incorrectly, the man she selects gets the trip.
Oh my goodness.
Sure. Why not?
What year was this show?
2007.
Yeah, that sounds about right. There's such a trend, I think, between maybe the start of the Obama years and the just past, just before, around 9/11, of all these shows where it just had really weird game shows just involving gay characters, or reality shows like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy and that sort of thing. It's just such a weird cultural phenomenon. Look, the first thing that already caught my eye about this particular episode, it's very girl power. Of course, that's why you chose it for me to watch. As a foremost a proponent of girl power, it really empowered me to watch this show. One thing that made me laugh at the start was that there's this whole bit about the villain, which is called Indigo. Yeah, so there's this whole joke about how they're not sure of what the gender of this person is. And so they have this whole running thing about, you can't just assume that this villain is a girl or a guy. And I just thought it was just oddly topical that there's that recurring joke.
Well, yeah, because the the She Spies are, quite offended that they would assume that a woman could not also be a mastermind criminal and jewel thief. That's sexism. More female prison guards.
Hey!
So we open on our spies. We'll introduce them quickly. We've got Natasha Henstridge from the Species movies. She's playing Cassie. Kristen Miller as Dee Dee. She's done heaps of low budget stuff, but I knew her as the voice of Lisa in Team America World Police. That's where I knew her from.
There you go.
And Natasha Williams as Shane. She was a regular on the Olsen Twins TV show So Little Time.
I actually recognised her and I wasn't sure where, and I looked her up and it turned out that she was on a season of Saved by the Bell, which I've been, coincidentally watching a lot on YouTube over lockdown. So, in my just sort of retro TV watching spiel, so maybe that was it. But I'm sure she's just, one of those actors that's got, bit parts and things.
Definitely, yes. That's everyone in this TV show is like that. So our three She Spies, I apologise. They are trying to infiltrate the hideout of a jewel thief called Indigo with the help of their Bosley, Jack, played by Carlos Jacot. He's popped up in a lot of things. He was a regular on Psych and Big Love. He's quite good in this, actually. He was probably one of the funnier actors. But as you mentioned, there is a lot of self-referential stuff, a lot of breaking the fourth wall. There's this funny bit which is which is indicative of the kind of humor in the show.
It goes without saying.
Then why say it?
What?
Whatever it was you were about to say.
Because it needs to be said.
Not if it goes without saying.
But it's very important information.
It's already been said.
Yes?
To us?
Of course.
So you're just saying it for the benefit of someone who might be watching who didn't hear you say it before?
I guess I am.
Jack, I never thought I'd be saying this, but can we please get back to the case? Okay, Jack, we're at the door.
Yes, Dr. Frankel, it's happening again. The unshakable feeling I'm a sidekick whose only purpose is to give exposition in an action-adventure show.
Yeah, it's just, it's actually pretty good writing for the time and the caliber of TV show that this is.
And it's not just the writing, but also I just really respect his commitment to delivering that line exactly as it's meant for a schlocky TV show like this.
Yeah, I think everyone in this show is just hammy enough, except one person in particular who we'll cover later. Take a wild fucking stab, but we'll get to it. So they barge into this room, they find a bunch of endangered animals in cages, and pretty soon a fight bursts out, and there's a few fight scenes in this, and they're all very similar. Lots of silly effects, cartoonish punching, kicking, kung fu moves, cartoony sound effects. It's very silly. It's not meant to be, John Wick. And in all of the hubbub, Cassie is kidnapped.
Oh no!
Oh no!
They took our friend.
Oh no, gal pal. Come back, gal pal. Then we get our extremely early 2000s credits intro with that voiceover guy that was used every fucking where in this time period.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was thinking exactly the same thing. He was in every single TV show. The title screens is just classic early 2000s. I love the little ring lighting on their eyes, the really saturated effects and everything. It's just perfect.
Yeah, all of the sort of technologically themed, very much a product of the Y2K aesthetic of the millennium. Yeah, and this was a little bit later than that, but still, it was riding high on Y2K.
It's very the No Scrubs video.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that voiceover guy has come to represent an entire generation of TV ad promos. So much so that when someone does an impression of a hammy, silly ad promo or television promo, that's the impression you're doing when you do an impression of it. For those who don't know, this is what he sounds like.
There are 3 career criminals with 1 shot at freedom. Now they're working for the feds who put them away. These are the women of She Spies. Bad girls gone good.
So after our credits, we're back at She Spies HQ. And Jack and the remaining She Spies receive a video from Indigo, our villain, who, even though we don't see much of his face in the video, is, to Combs nerds like me, unmistakably that is Jeffrey Combs.
I had to revisit, Lisa, we were talking the other day about how like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily like recognize Jeffrey Combs if they weren't Combs heads, such as yourself. But
Combs.
The moment that Jeffrey Combs like shows his like just the lower part of his mouth, I was like, that's him. That's got to be him. And that's like the thing that you were telling me about where he really dials it up.
I mean, that's the thing. I don't even think you need to have watched as many Jeffrey Combs vehicles as I have to know. It's just, I know that mouth anywhere. Yes, but you can tell that you're going to be in for a big, weird character, because even though we only get like, it's like a sort of a silhouette outline and only his mouth is lit, he's already giving it 110%. Real big pantomime energy, but it is fun.
The way he said, like, he calls her at some point a would-be Matahari, and the way he says it is just very like this strumpet. It's just so grandiose.
He tells the spies that he's going to steal the crown jewels of Estonia from the Metropolitan Museum. He also apparently loves Mel Gibson, as evidenced by this.
The agency knew I couldn't resist the jewels, since those beauties shine as brightly as a post-road warrior, pre-lethal weapon, young Mel Gibson's eyes.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so I would say already you know that the main brief on this character is camp. So
yes, absolutely. A She Spy, who's tied up, she refers to him on the video call as a model villain. Dun, dun, dun.
Dropping clues. Yes, basically Indigo's like, I'm going to steal these jewels, and if you try to stop me, I kill Cassie. And he even cuts to Cassie to prove that he has her. And they let Cassie talk to the other She Spies. So they're like, fuck, what are we going to do? But even with that threat, the spies decide to go in. Sorry, the She Spies decide to go in. And then we soon meet Special Agent Nick Shields, Nicolette, played by Brooke Burns, who was a regular on Melrose Place and Baywatch. She comes in 150% sass. Oh my God.
Oh God, it was so, like, you're kind of like cruising along at just like, medium level altitude in this episode. You get a bit of a spike when Jeffrey turns up and like does his little villain bit, and then all of a sudden this Avril Lavigne looking chick turns up in like leather clothes. Like, she gives off like gay quasi villain vibes to me, like frenemy sort of thing. Like, and she has hair. I have to, like, this is what took me back. Like, they're not quite white girl dreads, but they're definitely, like, teased in a way that looks very white girl dready.
Absolutely. I made a specific note to bring up the hair, because I'm like, I know that is an early 2000s hairstyle because I saw other people with it. It's not dreads. It's just twisted. You know, like when you twist your hair around your finger. It's just like that. It's just twirled around. It looks horrible. Why were people doing that to themselves?
Everyone was done so dirty with their hair in this episode. Shane just has the worst hair. Like, I don't understand what they were trying to do with it. Like, they were trying to put it up into spikes, but some of it was falling down. And I was just like, who hurt you? Like, what makeup artist did this to you?
Yeah, and Shane's hair, she's got like a blonde bob, and it is straightened into absolute fucking razor blades. Like, you know that straightening where they try to make it sharp at a point at the end? It's terrifying.
Oh, God. That period of time was a bad time for hair in general, but there are some really incredible examples of it in this episode.
Another incredible example is, as you mentioned, Nick's outfit. She is head to toe leather. She has leather pants and a leather jacket and leather fingerless gloves. She would be sweating her ass off.
Is it special agent policy to have a leather bustier as your uniform? I wasn't aware that this was uniform policy. I just know, though, that like 16-year-old me would have been absolutely in love with her, just no matter how ugly this outfit is.
Yeah, because she's a badass.
She's kicking ass and taking names and etc. etc.
She's got real Eliza Dushku energy.
Yes, that's it. Yes,
yep.
She's the bad girl who, like, 16-year-old bisexuals who aren't aware of it just yet are just like, I don't understand why I like her. I keep thinking about her. I wonder why that is.
I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a wildly surprising thing to say that all of the She Spies are incredibly hot. Like, of course.
Oh, they are. They're incredibly attractive women. Clearly keep in shape in their spying jobs, and full credit to them in that.
Yeah, Natasha Henstridge, gorgeous, 8 feet fucking tall, very good. They actually, I realized they never put her directly next to Jeffrey Combs because he's a short king. She would have loomed down at him.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, they're all incredibly hot and they're all in heels. Like, I feel like it would be very stressful to do such a physical job in 5-inch heels. But, of course, I'm not a special agent, so what would I know?
And you never will be. She also, for this whole scene, she has like a toothpick hanging out of her mouth. I'm like, wow, this is so unsubtle. It is just punching you in the face with the point.
And she talks a lot about, like, eating owls for some reason. I feel like that was like a thread of conversation that was like meant to show how scary she was, but it just like, it was very strange. But I definitely got the point that she was meant to be intimidating, and I was like supposed to be scared but also horny for her.
That's the ultimate combination that you want out of a TV show. Scared and horny. Nick is apparently a hugely successful secret agent, and her reputation definitely precedes her. They're all like very impressed by her, especially Jack. He wants her autograph. But Indigo is the one criminal that has escaped her clutches thus far. So she wants to help the She Spies catch Indigo. She's very mean and catty. None of them are getting along, but they decide to work together. So they find a medical alert bracelet on the roof when looking for clues, and they use the medical condition listed on that to track down a felon who was working for Indigo.
She kicks down the door and like they tie him up or something, and then she like harasses him.
Well, yeah, they find the felon and Nick beats him up with a phone book to get information out of him, which they do get through very unethical means.
It's just like, it's very... look, I'm not going to make any sort of assumptions about secret agents and what kind of interrogation techniques they have. They're clearly all just, you know, designed to get information out of these people. But I feel like hitting someone with a phone book where they might immediately become unconscious is perhaps not the most productive way to do this.
A cab, even She Spies. Sorry. The address that the felon gives them is a furrier, which turns out to be a dead end, but a dead end that alerts Indigo to the fact that they're after him. They go back to question the felon, and Nick says a line that I actually genuinely enjoyed, which was, to quote a famous philosopher, duh.
See, that's like the bits of like the really funny writing sneak through. I think she benefits from a lot of it. The whole thing of like, you know, setting it up for it to be a furphy, for them to see like them being recorded is quite clever. But also like I really enjoyed like the little bits, the cutaway scenes where they're like driving to and from it, and like the sped up wheels and stuff like that. It's all very cartoon show, which I loved.
Yeah, and I will say, like, say what you will about the quality of the jokes. This show has the joke rate is so high. Like, every conversation has like funny lines in it, good gags. Like, you know, some of them have aged better than others. Some of them are of the time. Some of them are kind of silly, but it puts a lot in there. Like, it's not just like generic dialogue back and forth. It's actually quite well written.
Yeah.
The felon gives them a name. Henri Lafontaine, a famous fashion designer. They engage Jack in this conversation, which I found quite funny.
Henri Lafontaine, the famous fashion designer?
No, Henri Lafontaine, the famous toll booth operator. How many Henri Lafontaines do you know?
6. It's just summer in Quebec.
So they realise, as you probably have, that Henri and Indigo are the same person.
Oh no!
Oh, quelle surprise. So they have to, in another of what I imagine is weekly hijinks for these ladies, they have to infiltrate a runway show that Henri is putting on.
Fashion show!
Modelling montage! Woo!
I love a fashion show. I love the spin on the let's put on a show theme, except it's let's put on a show to save our co-worker who's in imminent danger from a supervillain.
Oh yeah, and we have to get in there and really ham it up. Like, we have fighting skills, but now we need acting skills. I'm definitely going to screen cap some of these outfits in this runway show, because even though Henri/Indigo tells us what the theme of the show is later, there is no common theme for any of these outfits. Like, I mean, they're fucking ugly, but, you know, that's probably of the time. So So they get into some costumes. Dee Dee is wearing a 1920s style flapper dress with like a 20s headband.
And a little blue wig that's like off the style, to be fair, but also still very strange combination of everything.
Yeah, I don't know if women in the 1920s were wearing a lot of anime wigs, but you know, I wasn't there. Who's to say? This isn't Midnight in Paris.
She really looked like the kind, like she was about to like do like some Twitch streaming from a hot tub at some point. But yeah, dreadful costume.
Yeah, and Shane is wearing a 60s style disco thing with like a big pink afro wig. It's not exactly high couture. It looks really cheap. The thing I noticed about Dee Dee's 20s outfit is that it was definitely a sign of a cheap outfit, because you know how 20s dresses have like the fringe hanging down on the front?
Yeah.
The fringe on hers didn't go all the way around. It was only at the front.
Oh, so it's like one of those Halloween costumes that you just buy because you remember that you have to go to someone's Halloween party and you have to like get a costume within the next day.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, it doesn't need to be a genuine 20s dress. It just needs to look vaguely like one. So it's only going to have the fringe on the front. Yeah.
I liked Nick's costume because he describes it as something different to what it actually looks like. But it's like a bikini with smiley faces on it, which I honestly thought was like a 90s raver outfit.
Yeah, because it's a smiley face bikini with like pink fur trim all over it. And she, like I think all of the other She Spies, are all wearing knee-high boots. You know, it's like a miniskirt with knee-high boots. It does look very ravery. I don't imagine that the writers of She Spies 2003 were also well versed in high fashion. So they do try to find the room that Cassie is in. They run into a couple of like film noir ass looking guards who have like fedoras. They look disgusting. I'll take a little screen cap of that. But importantly, that's all just leading into what we're all waiting for, which is that we meet in the flesh, your friend and mine, Jeffrey Combs.
Yay! He looks fantastic. He's really just going all out with this.
He looks absurd. He is playing he is playing Henri Lafontaine. He's wearing, and I'll take pictures obviously, but he's wearing a bubblegum ice cream coloured jacket that looks like it's made from, and I've been trying to think of how to describe this material, and I don't know if we only had these in Australia, but do you remember those scarves from the early 2000s that were like woolen, but they weren't? It was like somebody... Yes, okay. It was like somebody like knitted a scarf out of plastic.
It's basically what it is. It's this... And I know this only because, like, for a brief period of time, I was, like, very much into knitting and so understood, like, the wool and stuff like that. But it's like this weird wool which has toggles. And so when you knit it, it has all of, like, these weird loops. So it's not quite yarn, but it looks like almost like a bath mat kind of weird sort of texture.
Yeah, it's like it's weird because when you touch it, it feels like slippery.
Yes. It's like just a polyester nightmare, not befitting of this man, but he looks great.
he's got like he's got a little felt hat, jaunty angle, lots of gold jewelry, haphazardly tied leopard print silk scarf around his waist, and a little blonde bob wig. The wig is very funny because I don't know if in the show it's meant to be obvious that it's a wig. Because
it's very obviously a wig.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, sometimes you watch a movie and you look at someone who's wearing a really shitty, cheap wig, and you're like, how the fuck did you think you could get away with that? That looks awful. You would have been better not having that wig at all.
My only sort of conclusion can be like, they didn't think that we'd be watching this in the future, and maybe, like, I don't know, this wasn't high definition, and they thought, okay, I guess we can get away with, like, a certain, like, lack of adjustment in this wig.
His wig looks better than Dee Dee's little blue anime wig, but, you know, it is still, I think it's maybe it's part of the character that it's like, oh, he's this eccentric, he wears different wigs all the time. I don't know. Doesn't matter. He is also wearing Ugg boots. Why not?
They were Ugg boots. I wasn't sure.
They were long Ugg boots. They were knee-high Ugg boots.
I mean, this is also like one of those tragic fashion trends of that time too, that like for some reason, I actually don't know how that happened, but for some reason Hollywood celebrities were all about the Ugg boots.
It was so strange because like the top half of his body was meant to be like luxe high fashion, and then the bottom half of his body is just black pants tucked into camel-coloured Ugg boots. Like, half of it is high fashion and half of it is, like, I was on the couch and now I have to pop out to the service station to get a drink. This is just a little sound clip.
Thank you. It's so nice to see so many old faces, so many new faces, so many new faces that used to be old faces and that you'll be paying for until they're old faces again.
Yeah, he is majorly camp areas here.
This is a lot of commitment for what is less than a 10-minute role.
Yes, yeah, it is. So, yeah, I think the show goes for about 42 minutes. We do spend the vast majority of the show with the She Spies, including the little video at the start. We only get 3 scenes with Jeff in them. So there's this, his little intro here, and then he does, what do you call it when the fashion designer introduces the models and talks about the outfits? I don't know, whatever that, introducing them, I don't know, narrating the models.
I don't think that generally happens in fashion shows, whether he has to like literally define what it is they're wearing. Usually I think maybe, I can't say that I'm okay with this, I think usually the clothes speak for themselves, but Jeffrey is giving us like a full understanding of the capsule range that he's designed for us.
He talks about his new fall line, and those are not fall clothes, those are all summer dresses, by the way. But he tells us it's called Future Retro, which is why the styles are also wildly fucking thrown together. And the She Spies have to go along with the facade, so they end up being part of the modelling show. They have to like work the runway.
And because all the spies are very attractive women, they just fit in seamlessly.
Well, here's a little sound clip of Jeff describing one of the outfits.
Hey, Joe. It's the 60s, man. Tune in, turn on, and give peace and this uptight, out-of-sight LaFontaine miniskirt a chance. Its paisley pattern puts the nail in phenomenal. And its hemline puts the wood in Woodstock. Sergeant Pepper might have instructed the band how to play, but LaFontaine will teach you how to dress, baby. Yes.
So when Nick comes out and does her runway walk, she drops the act and confronts Henri and is attacked by the film noir bodyguards. A fight ensues, and for some reason they decide to take the She Spies up to where Cassie is being held. Because why not put them all together and then stand there like idiots?
It seems like the logical assumption to do. I do love that you mentioned the film noir goons, because why are they all wearing trilbies like they're 1960s reporters?
Yeah, and they've also got quite festive suspenders. Like, they're not like plain black suspenders. They're like floral printed, you know? Because, you know, they're like flunkies, but they're like...
fashionable.
Yeah, they were for a fashion designer. They got to be at least a little bit fashionable. And then Henri comes up and confronts them all, and he orders his men to kill them. He makes a funny little snooty face at Nick and then tries to leave, and then a bomb goes off. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
That was, I think there was some palaver about how there was a bomb there before, which meant they couldn't get in the front door, and so they fixed it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A bomb goes off. So, fight scene. The one thing you notice about this TV show as well is that none of the girls use guns or weapons, apart from the phone book.
Oh, so how do they... Is this just the power of martial arts?
Yes, I think it's meant to be the exquisite art of kung fu. Because yeah, it's all kicking and punching, and as far as I can tell, only Natasha Williams had a stunt double, so that would have meant that all of the women in this are all doing their own fighting stunts.
Oh wow!
Which you can kind of tell. Like, there's definitely part of the fight scene I was watching where Nick is fighting. I was like, I don't think you can do a cut there. That's actually her doing that. It was quite good. I mean, they're not like John Wick level. I don't know why I keep comparing this to John Wick, but it's not John Wick level fighting, but it's still stuff that you wouldn't typically maybe know how to do if you were just a soapy actor, you know.
Or expect them to do, or like, you know, put themselves in like, you know, physical, not danger, but like, you know, just like making them do like, you know, tumbles and stuff like that. That's pretty
So they let Carrie loose. Henry/Indigo almost gets away, but then Nick drops a vase on his head like it's a fucking cartoon. And instead of like cracking his skull open and putting him unconscious, he's just kind of a bit woozy.
You almost like imagine like a cartoon that you see like the birds circling his head or something.
He holds up a little sign that says "ouch."
Yes.
Then he runs to a wall that has a tunnel painted on it. Oh, damn it wasn't real.
I think that's why I like this show so much. It really is just like a live-action Tom and Jerry
Yeah,
cartoon.
it's very silly, except with sexy She Spies. So Nick has a nice little tender moment at the end about how she's not a bad person and how she's envious of the She Spies because they have each other to depend on, and that she's always worked alone, and that, you know, the toughness of her job has kind of made her a bit rough around the edges, and she appreciates their work. It's a nice moment.
Aww. It turns out friendship helps you. It can make you not, like, want to be a bad person. We've all learnt something.
The real She Spies were the friends we made along the way. And on the way out, she slams Henri into a wall, which is very funny. Just the slapstick comedy of it, the physical comedy of it, which Jeff loves. He loves that sort of thing in movies, especially when he's doing comedic stuff. What's funny is the whole time that they're having these touching and meaningful talks, Nick is just standing there holding Jeff up like a marionette while he's sort of like semi-conscious. Because he obviously can't like slump too far because then Nick won't be able to carry him. So he's just kind of standing there with his head kind of slightly bowed to be like, yeah, I'm a bit fucked up. I'm not going anywhere. His little wig askew.
One of the She Spies, I didn't catch who, she says that Nick has a really angry style of fighting. And it's like, as opposed to what? Fighting is
Girls
angry.
fight nice.
It's really, I do love the underlying message of maybe you shouldn't beat up people to get what you want from them, even though they're literally spies whose only method of attack towards their enemies is fighting.
I don't think it's hugely realistic to think that secret spies working for a secret government organization wouldn't use violence. I think if anyone was going to.
Yeah, I think if anyone was going to threaten someone's life if they didn't give up information, it would be the She Spies.
There's also like a weird final scene pinned on the end when Jack and the She Spies watch Nick on some sort of hidden camera not steal some money. So there's a suitcase full of money that I think belonged to the felon from earlier, and it was like a payoff. And they're like really happy because she's like, oh, how nice. She has mended her ways. She did not steal the money that she could have stolen.
Yeah, friendship makes you not want to steal money from the
Yeah.
heist. Obviously.
She worked with the She Spies and now she's a better person. And I'm a better person for having watched this show.
So am I. I've learned a lot of moral
I learned so
lessons.
much. I learned how to kick in knee-high leather boots. I learned how to style a pink afro wig with a paisley singlet dress.
I learned how to rewire a door, which already had a bomb attached to it. I learnt how to, like, smolder with really bad hair in a leather bustier.
I've never felt older than being on TikTok and watching Zoomers who are trying to bring back the Y2K aesthetic that we lived through. And I just keep thinking, you weren't there. You didn't see.
Why would you do this to yourself?
Yeah, I don't know, like, I guess they're doing what most of us have done, which is, like, pick and choose things from the generation or from the era and bring it back. Because I will say, they haven't brought back some of the truly despicable things that we were doing, like wearing a dress over jeans. Unforgivable. Unforgivable.
Ah, man, I did a bit of that. They've brought back cargo pants, which is, I guess, efficiency. I can't really say much of the fashion style, but I haven't seen if they brought back not just cargo pants, but do you remember the ones which had, like, the zip-off bits?
Yes.
Oh, and, like, chokers and stuff are still all the rage.
The one thing I wish they would bring back is inflatable furniture, because that was fun.
Yeah, like, do you remember when everything was, like, transparent and neon, and they had, like, the little inflatable aliens and inflatable couches? That was, I think that was, like, probably the peak of, like, the nice little accoutrements and stuff that were, like, really Y2K.
I guess the problem with looking back at that stuff is, like, did I like it because it was good, or did I like it because I was a child then, and I had a lower threshold for joy?
Hard to say, isn't it? But considering my looking backwards for, like, really dodgy stuff for joy at the moment, I think maybe it's a little bit of both. I could definitely appreciate an inflatable alien at this point, I think.
Nostalgia can make fools of us all, you know? There's some things that I keep looking at that I'm like, do I want it because the lockdown has made me inherently depressed and wistful for an era that I cannot return to? Or do I want it because it's silly and weird and a bit funny? We've got to interrogate our own feelings about this before we start buying a see-through landline phone.
Look, they really should make all computers look like
So
iMacs again.
that's She Spies. Jeffrey Combs, Jeffrey Combs as a very camp fashion icon.
That was wonderful. I'm definitely going to look up more She Spies episodes. I'm going to look up the Cameron Daddo one because now I want to see what he was like. Because I think he's like a supervillain in the second season.
An Australian
as well.
in an American movie is usually a comedic purpose rather than a villain. Because there's just sometimes the Australian accent doesn't have the gravitas that you want it to. You know, like walking over to someone and, is the submarine fucking ready yet? Get out my ballistics weapons and I'm going to take that fucking FBI cunt down.
I would argue that the Australian accent rarely has any gravitas. Even in social situations where the Australian accent is fairly novel, it sounds even more comedic than you would like it to sound. I just remember going to the US and just like being acutely aware of just how ochre I sounded, even though I don't think I do normally.
The only scary Australian there is Ben Mendelsohn. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but yeah, She Spies, actually pretty good fun. I'm definitely going to try and find some more of the season 1 episodes. I think season 1's probably easier to find because I think only season 1 came out on DVD.
It might end up being one of those things where, like others, like if the second season isn't out there, like it turns up on Australian streaming services. That's a fun little Easter egg that I discovered again during lockdown. Is that the Channel 7 app, because they wanted like a whole bunch of content for people to watch, they just bought a ton of like prematurely cancelled shows from the US.
I can't imagine Americans treating Australian media the same way. Like, imagine an American streaming app that's just full of, like, shit Australian TV shows that got cancelled. Anything to plug, Evie?
Yes. I feel it would be churlish of me not to plug my podcast. Not good enough. It is a comedy politics podcast. We do try to keep it lighthearted, given the current state of the world. I think it's fairly enjoyable, and yeah, like we do it weekly. It's very contemporary, so please don't go back to listen to any episodes in case we say something that doesn't hold up.
So I was on the episode probably a week or two ago, depending on when this episode comes out, and it's, even though obviously a lot of what you guys and we talked about is from an Australian perspective because we're Australian, so much of it touches on general things, like when we talk about neo-Nazis infiltrating the union movement, I feel that that's a problem that Americans can also relate to.
The way I describe it is that it's a group chat of friends who talk about things that are happening and try to understand what it means, and I hope that sort of vibe comes across, and I hope you sort of got that feeling from it too.
The whole Not Good Enough gang are all incredibly smart, incredibly funny. Listeners to this will also know one of the Not Good Enough staff, I guess, is Tom Lang, who is also featured on this podcast. Mr. Science Guy himself, Tom Lang. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. That was a lot of fun.
No wuckers, mate. And as usual, you can find this podcast on @ReanimatesPod on Twitter and Instagram, Reanimates Podcast on Facebook and Tumblr, and Reanimates Podcast on YouTube as well. You can go there. I try to get the episodes up after it comes into your streams, but please don't hate me if it's not straight away. I mean, you can send me a message and harass me, but I'll just be like, please.
The piggies want the content.
Daddy made you some content, open wide. That's all you freaks are doing is sucking at my content teats.
Oh, disgusting.
That's a terrible note to go out on. I don't think I can end the podcast on that.